Hello there, ladies and gentle people. It is currently April 6, 2010. We might have some brief lag issues right at the start here, but all that things shall be fixed. I just need to go back into my live stream and make sure there's no ugly banner down at the bottom. By the way, I'm just going to show off some cool little tactics I figured out with my live stream. So I now can get overlays. I mean, normally you see this overlay appear that's like, oh, coming live soon, but I'll just go ahead and turn that off. But hey, check this out. Check this out. I actually have this little box. Yeah, there we go. I can show a little box on the screen. It may or may not be working, but I'm going to show it anyways. Alright, cool. So with all that said and done, I'm going to go actually back to the fact that it is day 9, day number 96. Those numbers are getting really big. Equally big as my hair. I actually am starting to consider getting a haircut at some point here. But you know, when you're a college student, really that's one of those things that you try to cut out of the mix. You know, just spending money is just the worst. Because, you know, if I don't get a haircut, then hey, maybe I can, you know, get a little bit of an extra comic book here or there. But the actuality of everything is that I am saving up. I am getting more awesome hardware. I just ordered an HD camera, so that way you guys can see me, like my face in like 1080p and shit, which is, I think valuable. I think it's an important thing to do. But I'm also going to be getting a whole bunch of super awesome stuff for my computer. Going to get some actual production equipment, maybe some backlights, maybe some blush, all that good stuff. Because I really want to have increasingly more quality on this stream, because I'm not going to lie, when I was doing StarCraft 1, easiest thing in the world. You don't need quality with StarCraft 1. You don't need like 1080p for StarCraft 1. It runs in like 640 by 480. It's like 256 colors. It's like not a big deal. But now that there's StarCraft 2, people want to see the bright colors. They want to have that LSD acid trip feeling without actually having to get in trouble with their mommies and daddies. But today we are actually going to go back. We're going to look at Flash's games. Ooh, none of that graphical. Ugh, who wants graphics, right? We want to just be able to admire someone's unbelievable sexiness in their StarCraft play and try to be more like that person. So let's just go ahead and pop right on over here. This is Han vs. Flash from the Pro League Finals. I'm first going to swing the video over here just to take a look at this map they're playing on, Roadrunner. When I looked at this, I just do not like this map for Protoss. I like this map quite a bit for Terran. I mean, like, we have these double bridges, very easy to secure early on. Could give us a little bit of an issue with some Dragoon containment, but not the biggest deal. And as we will note in this video, Flash, I believe, is spawning at the bottom position. Gatorade is fantastic. But yeah. This seems like not the biggest deal to try to bust out of here. It's in these big center areas that if we just look at how constricted everything is, I mean, this is very difficult for Protoss to move through and very nice for the Terran to be able to set up big siege blockades. There's a lot of obvious spots to mine, namely right in front of these double ramps, you know, right here on these black tarred regions. It's just a little easy to control the Protoss flow of things. The one thing that I will note about this map that I think is significant is the fact that it's what I call a big map. It's not that it actually physically is large. I mean, all these maps are pretty much 128 by 128. But the distances are long, right? It takes a long time to actually get where you want to go. Because those little double bridges sort of constrict movement. They make it harder to get there. So the expansions feel a lot farther back, farther away from the center than are actually... well, actually, they just feel farther away from the center. And I'll just leave it at that. So a lot of late game things like carriers feel a little bit stronger. Things like arbiters feel scarier. And so on and so forth. So let's see how Flash ends up doing it. I'm going to go ahead and crank this up. Oh, there's Flash. Who, by the way, achieved like a 90% win rate in the Pro League. Do you understand how sick that is? 90%? I mean, he may have been a little short at like 89%, but I do believe there was an article about how if he won a certain number of games, he was going to be at 90. So, by the way, this is Han from NBC spawning as the brown Protoss up here, and then we have Flash down at this bottom of the map. So yeah, there's Flash looking great and fantastic. And notice that his team, look up here, his team's down as usual. Flash, oh, you poor guy, having to pull the weight for your team. I'm so sorry about that. But, you know, it helps you get a 90% win rate with an insane number of games played. Oh yeah, this, I'm hoping these are the map statistics, because there, yeah, look at that. Terran vs. Protoss, yuck. We do not like being Protoss on this map. But traditionally, and by traditionally I mean more recently really, Flash's Terran vs. Protoss has been a little bit weaker than his Terran vs. Zerg and his Terran vs. Terran. He had some insane streak in Terran vs. Terran and Terran vs. Zerg. So his Terran vs. Protoss, though phenomenal, is probably his weakest at this point. It's kind of funny to note because Flash actually became famous for his Terran vs. Protoss in the GOM TV Star Invitational, shoutcasted by my brother Tasteless, the Storm Observer. Shameless plugging. He just did a very turtle-intensive style, and recently he's been experimenting with very, 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 very aggressive types of plays with Terran. And we do see a pretty offensively placed bunker. Offensively, not offensively. Not like if you saw it, you'd be like, God, that asshole. You know, like just, you know, being a little bit aggressive with this placement right here. And the Protoss going for the fairly standard, you know, gateway pile, or gateway gas. Going to be getting a core, you know, soon. All that sort of good stuff. One thing that I subconsciously registered but didn't talk about, this is an early gas. This is a gas before a gateway. So this clearly highlights a gimmick to me. It's actually funny. I was so excited to just talk about Flash that I didn't note that this assimilator was so early before Pylon. What could that possibly signify? The big thing it signifies is some sort of antics with Dark Templar. You need to have a lot of gas to be able to do that. Occasionally, it's to do some sort of funky stuff with carriers. But generally, that I would see that and be like, Dark Templar right off the bat. Nothing like, you know, standard. Obviously not going to be getting Dragoons or any sort of early expand. Just eats into the minerals a little bit too much. But that would have been funny if I never mentioned that. Let's come back to StarCraft 1, ladies and gentlemen. On a normal game, it's just like gassing first. I'm like, it's fine. Let me tell you something. That's an offensive barracks right there, but that is an offensive early gas, man. That bothers me. Because as much as I love cute plays with you know, getting a lot of Dark Templar, doing a lot of funky stuff with that, I dislike really ever getting gas before gate. That's just so extreme. And I actually have not seen this game, so this gives us a nice opportunity to sort of see what's going to come out of Han and sort of retrospectively look back and be, oh, you were being clever in this way. Flash. It doesn't look like yet he's built a gas geyser. That's also a relatively late gas geyser for Terran in this spot. But, yeah, there's the second supply depot, so very clearly not going to be getting a gas anytime soon. But that's actually okay because what Flash has been favoring quite a bit these days is to get an expansion before the gas geyser and use his Marines with bunkers as a reasonable way to defend. Let's actually pause this right now and go check out our map Roadrunner, which I'm actually going to open up in a separate window so I don't have to scroll this viewing client all around everywhere. But here is Roadrunner. Come on, load. And by the way, if any of you want images of these maps, definitely use the Team Liquid Pro Gamer database. That's where I get all my infos. But yeah, so notice that this double bridge constricts movement really hard. Makes it a great opportunity to early expand way earlier than you normally would, because you can use Marines to manage this ramp relatively easily. So that's part of the reason why I think Flash is opting to build that barracks so far forward, so he immediately gets control of his double bridge. And you could argue, oh, he's going to swing around, he needs to worry about that, he needs to worry about attacks along this backside. But it's just such a far distance, and it's such an awkward angle that I think he's going to be okay. So there is the command center going down. This was fairly typical. A great lesson we learned from Idra and the Team Liquid Star League is that it is less than optimal to cancel that command center when it's at 90% completion and leave the game in 2.5 minutes. But, you know, it's good to sort of review those games, not just for educational value, but for a good, hearty raffle. And there we do see the Citadel of Adun going down. I'll actually rewind so that way it looks like my audio's synced up. There is the Citadel of Adun going down. This is the general order that you would be going for Dark Templar in, or excuse me, a Dark Templar drop, is that you would go Citadel first, and right when the Citadel finishes, you make the Robotics Facility and the Templar Archives. Very, very standard timing. Good to get out. I'm delighted that he is actually going for Dark Templar for two reasons. First of all, it is the build that will be most beneficial for that gas. It benefits most from getting that gas before the gateway. And two, I call Dark Templar, so it's making me look smart. Thanks, Han. I appreciate it. Even though, of course, Flash goes on to win everything. Oh, sorry, spoilers. My bad. But, you know, getting his probe blocked, scooting it on out. Now, if you're Terran and you spot one Zealot at the ramp, you should immediately go, oh my god, he's going for Dark Templar or he's going for Reavers. straight up should be your big concern. Actually, what's kind of funny is that normally, right up there at that ramp, you'd be getting the Zealot because you'd be thinking, oh, I need to save a little bit of gas so that way I can be able to eke out this earlier Robo or these earlier DTs. But here, he's gotten like super early gas and he's getting a Zealot. He's just like devoting everything to gas early on. This is like ultra mega giga cheese. Look at that. No probes being made. To hell with the late game. I don't want to play Flash in that. Ugh. And there is the second gateway going down. It might just be a straight up DT attack as opposed to a DT drop. I assumed it would be something DT drop-ish because, 200 gas for your robotics facility is quite a lot. So it's very useful to be able to... Oh yeah, there's a robotics facility. Sorry, the observer hadn't done it yet. How rude. But yeah, 200 gas is a lot for the robotics facility. And with the cybernetics core, or excuse me, the Citadel of Adun that you can just barely see on the edge of this screen, and the Templar Archives, that's a lot of gas, especially if you want to be getting 4 DTs in that drop. And look, still no probes being made, the ultra mega cheese. One thing to note, so Flash did in fact see, he saw this Zealot at the ramp. He knows that there's something up, so he's getting an early engineering bay. This is quite early. This is significantly earlier than normally. And look, is that his first factory going down? Was he getting an engineering bay before the factory? Maybe. Either that or the engineering bay just built, at about the same time. Delicious yellow liquid called Gatorade. That, again, replenishes electrolytes, which is almost certainly something that involves science. So there is the pylon going down. So I think a super important question here is why the pylon there? You always hear me talk about subtle elements that you adjust to try to fix general problems that you're having. Maybe you'll do constant probe production, but cut 2 probes at a very specific spot to get ahead in your build or something like that. And you generally hear me talk about this stuff in reference to the big strategies, like, oh, if you're trying to do this huge long-term game plan and you're looking for every edge you can get along the way, that's when you do those little tiny things. But also with cheeses, I would probably say about half of cheeses involve some sort of, if he attacks my worker line at any point, I instantly lose element to it, So building that pylon there early, that to me signifies that Han is going to be walling off his ramp as he does this Dark Templar drop. Or at the very least, he's going to build enough pylons so that he can wall it off should it come to that. And I think that is unbelievably important whenever you're doing some sort of cheese, is just to have this slightly extreme contingency plan. Sometimes you'll see Bisu's actually done this more than once, where he builds gateways in the guy's base, and he'll tech up to the Dragoons. Oh my god, the observers will be freaking out. It looks like the Terran's going to lose, but Terran builds a factory in the middle of the map, and he's going to counterattack with the Vulture, but when he gets to Bisu's ramp, Bisu has walled his own main off with pylons, and the 2 gateways in the opponent's main proceed to just win without that big of an issue. Because there were a lot of games, I'd probably say in 2004, 5, 6, where players were doing cheese as sophisticated as what Han's doing, but they just screwed up, right? They were in a great position to win, but like, oh, a Firebat got in the base, good game, that sort of thing. So I love the fact that he is preparing for that sort of good stuff in advance. Still no probes being made. My god, is he cutting probes. But he's going to have so much gas. He's going to get more Dark Templar than make any reasonable sense. And beautiful wall in. Okay, so notice just the positioning. There was the barracks at the front here. Helped funnel in, helped close down that concave on the Dragoons. Notice that this bunker can deal with any Dragoons trying to sneak in around this way. And now he's going to pull it back, so that way he doesn't end up taking too many hits from the barracks, and he ends up walling it back off a little bit more easily. And that tank's finally coming out, but god, that was an early eBay. That was an insanely early eBay. Something I should note right now, since we have about 1,600 viewers in the channel, is that we're looking at 2 Flash games today, and I think it's always useful. Oh, I'm just going to scream with the observers, yes. I think it's also always useful to look at multiple games of good players in a row, because you can see how their mental state is evolving in the matchup itself, as well as in the course of the tournament. So we do have some more Marines being made. These Marines, oh, look at extending the use of those Marines, just popping them right out of the bunker, going straight to trying to just kill off this shuttle early on. So here comes the first Dark Templars going down. Uh-oh, oh, whoa. Oh, that would have been less than good. And you know what? This Marine, I think, is key because it has a chance to shoot down the shuttle. Looks like it's not doing it, but that's the sort of little thing that you should really be focusing on is, oh, maybe I can just, take a few hits from this Dark Templar unnecessarily just to be able to micro that Marine enough to kill off that shuttle. I almost called it a warp prism. Whoops. Oh, the negative influence SC2 has had. But there are so many more DTs coming. And this is actually kind of funny. You'll see that the Protoss is also expanding in here. That is very cool to me. And it looks like the Protoss is, taking as much, anything he can, really. Here comes a good old attack at the front. Protoss is taking anything he can, trying to kill off these depots at the back, trying to kill off any of these depots that are just sort of lying out here, continuing to do some pressure on the front. But that is so amazing to me that he's actually expanding. What a nutcase, right? Let's just describe what we saw. So Han builds a gas before Gateway, gets like 13 probes, and then stops probe production to get ultra fast DT drop with mass gas, so he can get tons of DT. And then he expands. So that seems like completely, discongruous, whatever. One of those big words that mean it doesn't line up together properly. Discongruous, I think is what I was trying to say. Incongruous, there we go. The word definitely existed. Anyways, and I wouldn't call this bad. I would call it creative, right? You heard me say, probably, just a few minutes ago, that a lot of clever players are good about cutting a probe here and there, so that way they can speed their build up, get some key components out a little bit faster. But very few players consider cutting like 15 probes and doing it. And I think that's super high level to the point where if you're like somewhere between a D and like a B level player, don't even worry about it. But it's still interesting to see the way that that's sort of evolved. But what I love so much about this game is the way that Flash is defending this. And, by the way, that's a miracle that he actually got to that missile turret. But anyways, Flash is having incredibly strong defense. So first of all, the very fast engineering bay at the front to get the turrets up. This turret right by the factories is so important. Many players will get the turret at the expo, a turret in the main, but not a turret by the factories, which is actually the target that the DTs pretty much always end up going for because everything else is covered. And Flash is very comfortable with making a lot of turrets because honestly, 9 times out of 10, this Protoss is all in at this point. So there's no issue at all with throwing down an extra few turrets because your goal is not to set up a good position for the late game. Your goal is to not die now because you're guaranteed to win later. And there it looks like Flash accidentally shot his SCV, just striking the fear in the heart of that, DT, letting them know how relentless those tanks can be. And now a nice slow push with turrets. Making more turrets than would be ideal, but again, 9 out of 10 Protosses are going to be all in at this point. That's why I think it's so brilliant that Han went one extra step, and now he's getting Dragoons. We actually see at the Cybernetics core that just went off screen that he is actually getting range upgrade for his Dragoons. And now, look at that, a robotics support bay. And in the meanwhile, Flash is spending all this money on turrets to deal with any other possible DT threat, because 9 times out of 10, Protoss is all in. But Han is already way past that point and is setting himself up for a good, solid late game. So this is actually an unbelievably clever build by the Protoss. So I did want to have this video be an example of how to be a good Terran player, because Flash is the man. But I'm just so impressed by Han's play that I just briefly want to recap. I love the act of recapping. So, I say this so many times that you should be thinking about the mid-game first with a lot of your builds. And any sort of change that you make, some sort of adjustment you make, should be about rearranging. But you should eventually get to the same spot. That the key thing that good players do, that bad players don't, is this rearrangement of various things. So, for instance, what does a normal Protoss vs. Terran look like? Well, 2 gateways, an expansion, a robotics facility for observers, but also to get a Reaver to do a little bit of harassing. And as he's going for the 2 gateway, 1 robotics facility harassment with 2 bases, Protoss takes a third base. That is the most normal thing in the world. If you don't do that and haven't done this as Protoss, definitely do it, because it's just so easy. The Reaver can help you to defend, it can deal with harassment, you can harass with it, contains the Terran a little bit, you get information on what he's doing. So that's all good. On the other hand, people also know that these DT crazy antics are good, like what Han did. So let's describe what Han did a little bit. He cut like 15 probes, he did this insane DT rush with a drop and harassed the shit out of Flash, made him build like 100 turrets, and then he just expanded and then got a robotic support bay and got range for his Dragoons, and now he's in the same spot as that normal Protoss versus Terran play. That's so good. That's ingenious. I love that. And notice that a lot of the decision making that happened earlier on becomes easier if you know what that end goal is. Right? It becomes easy to get 2 gateways as you're doing this Dark Templar tech, because you're thinking, well, 2 gateways, an Expo and a Reaver, is what I'm going for anyways. So let's get these 2 gateways out of the way. And, you know, I already have the robotics facility to do this DT harass, so I just need to throw down a support bay to get the Reavers. Brilliant. I love it. And, of course, now that I've done all that yapping, I'm almost certain the Flash is going to attack with these vultures and, like, win immediately, and I'm going to look like an ass. But, you know, such is the standard day in the life of Day 9. And here flashes so many turrets. There's 3 at the ramp and 3 more cupped around the main. So here comes in some good old harassment. Han's pulling back. That second gas, although it might seem a little bit late, it seems fine given what happened beforehand with the very, very, very early first gas. And the fact that that expansion isn't super quick. If you were just going something standard like 2-gate Dragoon range and then expanding, you'd probably want that gas a little bit earlier. So now Flash looks like he's going to try to be equalizing. He's gotten the Observer up, and oh look, the Stargate. Even more normal, right? Transitioning into Arbiters. But, you know, honestly, from the looks of it, this looks a little bit more like Carriers to me. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Arbiters, because he already has that Templar tech up. It makes getting the Arbiter a lot easier. But 2-base Dragoon Reaver is one of the easiest transitions into Carrier. So let's talk a little bit about Flash's recovery. So what is he doing in this spot? Well, okay, so it is Arbiters. All right, cool. So what is Flash doing in this spot? Well, he has those 3 factories up. He's getting an armory as well. So what he's going to do is he's seen, oh, there was this harassment with this shuttle right here. It did a ton of damage, but I managed to hold it off. So theoretically, right now, the Protoss player, or I should say that the Terran has the ball, right? The Protoss is the one who has to kind of play back, play a little bit more defensively. His crazy Dark Templar antics got shut down. So now it's time for Terran to be allowed to move around the map. There's no threat of those Dark Templars for quite some time. So he's going to be harassing around with a bunch of vultures. He can plant a bunch of mines, get a 3rd expansion up, and get armory. What does gentle harassment, taking a 3rd, and an armory sound like? It sounds like a setup for the late game. Flash, everything he's doing is saying, okay, I stayed alive now, so I'm just going to win way later, because that's where my advantage is going to be. Right now, my Protoss opponent is rushed for all these units, for all this crazy teching pattern, but he's not in a good position to have a very late game economy, so no big deal. Now, this Reaver is, I would say, is very surprising for Terran right now. Oh my god, do not get so overeager with that shuttle, Han. I wouldn't be surprised if Han lost the shuttle with everything in it, and that's why I ended up leaving the game. Or I should say, losing the game. But yeah, if I were Terran in this spot, I would be very surprised to see a shuttle right now. I would be incredibly shocked to see a shuttle with a Reaver right now. I would have thought I was long gone and done with that. It's kind of funny. There's 2,367 views of this video, and there are currently 1,700 people watching this live, so just making my internet ego feel a little bit nicer there. So sincerest thanks to everybody. And here Protoss is doing, again, the normal mid-game for Protoss, right? He's clearing out mines with Dragoons and Observers. He has range. He's taking a 3rd. He's getting an Arbiter. Normal stuff. You can have the kookiest, craziest openings in the world, and if they flow into something normal, you're probably in good shape. You don't need to follow something kooky up with something even kookier. He doesn't need to go like mass Archon DT and try to go, oh, my crazy tactics didn't work. You know, it's totally... It's actually, I don't want to say it's fine. It's the correct move to transition to something normal. But, you know, we're going to see that Flash's late game stuff is really, really strong. Probably the worst Reaver shot known to man just went off there. But no big deal. It's Han. We'd expect nothing less. He's pretty good. I like his Protoss vs. Protoss quite a bit. Protoss vs. Terran, I prefer Jaehoon, which we're going to get to see next. A lot of more good harassment going on. This helps peel the Protoss away from the aggressive position. And also, you know, killing the Reaver is another good thing. But these big Vulture harassment type deals are very good for peeling away any sort of Protoss aggression early on. In particular, I think it's significant to note that Flash had 1 factory with add-on and 2 without. Most players who are going for some sort of late game where they end up sweeping across the map are favoring more tanks in that spot. But I love that Flash got all these Vultures because, again, this map has really ugly walk paths. And if you can plant mines in there, stuff like that happens where you end up making goon soup. You also have the ability to be a little more aggressive early on, because if he's trying to move out with small Dragoon troops, you can easily offensive mine them. And there goes down some more Vulture harassment. Yeah, I mean, there's very little Protoss can do on this map about a Terran player who's being aggressive with Vultures. I don't want to necessarily say attacking straight up and trying to hit expansions like this, but there's very little Protoss can do about you mining up the center. Excuse me, there's very little Terran can do... No, I said it right the first time. There's very little Protoss can do about Terran mining up the center. And this last little move right here is just pure genius by Flash. The fact that Flash knows he can do this is one of the hardest things to know in StarCraft. I mean, it could be the fact that Flash did kill off a bunch of Dragoons in the middle of the map, but most Terrans still don't follow up with this. They follow up with, you know, oh, I'll just comfortably deal with my 3 bases and macro up, knowing that my later push will be even stronger. So for anyone who's trying to, you know, watch this game and mimic it for their own games on Icy Cup, note that this attack right here is not something that you should intentionally try to incorporate regularly into your play. Really, it's the recovering from the DT and expanding to the 3rd plus the Vulture harassment. That thing everyone should do and can only be good. And, you know, makes you look like a complete baller. But it just impresses me so much to see Flash, you know, at complete ease, having been harassed like crazy early on, to have a completely long-term oriented build and to go, oh yeah, and I have more units right now, so I can just go kill him. So I really think Han played quite brilliantly, and I mean, it's a little bit unfortunate that we didn't get to see this late game unfold, because it would have made Han look like a total genius. But you know, here comes Flash, cleaning up nice and easy. Yeah, screaming commentators, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag this mouse a little bit farther forward. And here's Flash looking focused as ever. And after some more unsuccessful attempts and some potentially suave mind drags, no big deal. It looks like our Terran player has in fact won. So yes, indeed, it looks like Flash is a total badass. So we're actually going to be going on to Game 2. This is the game directly after that. It's between Flash and Jaehoon on Judgment Day. So let's briefly sum up what we got to see in that game. And I'm also going to load up the map right here. Again, getting it from Team Liquid's amazing Pro Gamer database. Whoa, I'm way off to the side. Looks like I was hiding from you guys. I'm so sorry, I would never do that. So let's go ahead and swap back over to the main screen right here. Oh, no, sorry, I lied. What I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about Judgment Day. Or excuse me, I want to talk about the last match on Roadrunner, and then talk about Judgment Day. So, in that last match, Flash had a great read on his opponent. He saw that early Zealot, and so he responded by getting a very early Engineering Bay. Again, that is one of those hallmarks of a very good player, the sort of player who is aware of that aggressive openings might not necessarily, you know, win outright or something like that. Let me rephrase that one more time. They're aware that those really aggressive openings, if they don't win outright, you pretty much won the game, right? You're going fine. And I'm just going to briefly unmute the chat to make sure that the stream is okay, because I just got some funky numbers on my internet. Sorry, that's what was actually distracting me. Just wanted to make sure. It looks like everything's going fine and well, so sorry about that. Yeah. So, anyways, allow me to refocus myself. Sincerest apologies to the on-demand viewers. Anyways, so anytime you see your opponent doing some sort of potentially all-in like play, it's okay to like make an engineering bay before a factory. Sounds completely insane and extreme. However, that is going to be what keeps you alive. And then later on down the road, you'll have a nice, strong economy. And the player who went all in, because he couldn't win immediately, he's screwed. So you're fine. It's that rearrangement. No worries about getting the factory late. You need a factory fast if your opponent's going to threaten you with dragoons early on, but you absolutely don't need the tank out early on if, you know, there's going to be 2 Dark Templars coming up at the front of your base or something like that. So Flash did a nice little rearrangement early game, and then Flash got a whole bunch of turrets in his main to deal with the Dark Templar harass when it actually did happen. And it seemed like way excessive. 6 turrets were built just to deal with Dark Templar, but that is actually 7 because one of them was killed. But that's okay, again, because with anything that aggressive, if you can just stay alive, you will be at an economic advantage to your opponent. And Flash did a brilliant move, which is that after he held it off, he didn't succumb to passivity, right? He didn't just get a bunch of add-ons, get a bunch of tanks, and sit on his ass. He instead got a bunch of vultures very quickly and just went aggressive with the mines and went aggressive with the expanding and the armory and the general late game play. And that's awesome. But it just blows my mind that Flash is in good enough mental state and good enough focus to just attack when he knows he's ahead. That's so hard. So we're going to watch the second game now that is between Jaehoon on NBC and Flash. This is the final game. And they played this map on Judgment Day, which I also don't like it so much for Protoss. So let's just actually briefly check the positions. It looks like Jaehoon's at the bottom right here, so that way I can reference it on this map. So if Jaehoon's here, this is actually probably the best positions for Protoss, with the Protoss here and the Terran over here. Because the Protoss pretty clearly is going to be able to get a safe expansion right up here. It sucks when your Terran opponent is up here in the top right, because then you kind of feel like you have to take this as your fourth after you've taken your natural and your second natural here. Because if you take this one, I mean, you can get tanked so easily. And these thin walls really screw up the Protoss movement quite a bit, making sieges all over the place really strong. Now, Flash, on the other hand, can literally push towards Jaehoon, and as he's pushing, just scoop up this expansion. So these, I actually guess I take back what I said earlier. I would probably say this is better for Terran. I mean, the expanding choices are not as ambiguous as they'd be in other positions. You know, the Protoss has a little bit clearer of a choice with where he wants to expand, but Terran still can really pump up the aggression. So let's see how Terran is going to respond in this spot. Alright, so it's currently tied 3-3. This is for the championship, so the Winners League. I'm going to go ahead and zoom forward just a touch, now that we've gotten past the fact that the Protoss hasn't gassed before Gateway or anything insane like that. Very tight pylon placement. I actually like that quite a bit. There's no need to actually place it too far forward. Because this map is generally quite open, it's useful to build those few early buildings a little bit more clustered. Excuse me. It'll help you manage your base a little bit more easily. Should a whole bunch of vultures get in there early, even if Marines pop in there early on, it can be a little bit easier. You don't get caught at too many ugly angles, and mines can't quite be placed in the best spots. So I like that quite a bit more. Look at Flash moving forward for the offensive barracks placement. Again, it looks like he's going for the same basic build as he did last game. Flash, I have a lot of admiration for. Okay, by the way, let's just say that Jaehoon's doing standard stuff. Let's just get that out of the way. But anyways, I have so much admiration for Flash because he is completely at ease doing the same build multiple times in a row in major tournaments. And the Gom TV Star Invitational many years back, hosted by my brother, is one of those tournaments that really gave me a lot of appreciation for Flash, because he did almost the exact same build in every Terran vs. Protoss. This very turtle-heavy, fast, +2/+1 upgrade push that just ripped through all his Protoss opponents. It was incredible to see the strength of that play. And the Protoss players tried to throw all sorts of different crazy, creative stuff at Flash, but Flash still just held down like a boss. And that's what I'm loving seeing right here, is that same consistency. Flash If we look on the mini-map, we see that Flash has not taken the gas in his main yet. Flash is still going for this same barracks, straight into expand play. And that is such an important lesson for everyone to learn. A good build is a good build is a good build. The defining characteristic of a good build is that your opponent should know it's coming and still have problems dealing with it, because it's not the surprise that gets you, it's the timing of it that it makes it so potent. And I just love that. So often players will be like, oh, I'm going to do this, he'll never see this coming, but to hell with that. Be a man like Flash and just rely on stability of play. So this is a little bit of a change that Flash is doing from most other players when they do this build. He's moving out early with those Marines. Most players just try to throw down that bunker ASAP. But Flash is moving out with the Marines, trying to shut down probe scouting just a touch. He's also getting that refinery before he gets the bunker. Again, one of those important reorderings. Because if you a lot of players just try to build the bunker right after the barracks finishes, just being a little bit, safe. But I love the fact that Flash, again, relying on having just a better build. And look at that insanely early engineering bay. I thought it was a scouting thing earlier on, but now it just looks like it's a key part of his play to just get that engineering bay that quickly. Yeah, look at that. It doesn't even look like a factory's down yet. More subtle elements from Flash. Let me actually rewind just to make sure we get a look at it. Look at this placement of this bunker. Right about here is where the Dragoons with range upgrade would be placed to be able to shoot at this bunker. So if you place it right here, this minimizes the size of that Dragoon concave. A lot of players would place it up here, and they'd have this huge, giant concave of Dragoons wailing on them. But here, it means that all the Terran units start shooting right about here. And that's where all the Dragoons also start shooting. So this is like the kill zone that Flash has set up. Beautiful. Great positioning. Very subtle, but profoundly kick-ass nonetheless. And it looks like Protoss is going for, probably I would say the standard on Judgment Day. Just a one gateway, faster range, and then an early expand straight off the bat. You want to get a good economy going up, partly because you want to take your third expansion. You want to take this base right here, your natural, at your front. Great choice. But man, Flash getting that engineering bay that early. I guess he's lost to DTs. I mean, that's the only way to put it. Looks like that factory is going down in his main now. Excuse me, sorry. A little bit of puberty snuck up on me and cracked that voice. Certainly hope it's not puberty 2, because the first one was pretty rough. Don't want it to be that bad the second time around. But anyways, man, that is the earliest turret I have ever seen. eBay before factory. I mean, I suppose it makes sense now that I think of it, because the most typical build is factory, command center, then engineering bay. So I guess he's just going command center, engineering bay, factory. Pretty much just slightly earlier, but basically the same time. And is he getting another turret? No, that's a depot. Okay, cool. That depot also seems critical because I'm sure Dark Templar would be able to sneak in to the Terran base if he didn't end up throwing down that depot. This is a little bit unorthodox by Jaehoon. Not extremely much so, but enough to mention the fact that he is getting that robotics facility after he's expanded. Most of the players will go Gateway, Expo, Robo, or they will go Gateway, Expo, Gateway, Robo. Just to be able to not die at a lot of early attacks that the Terran could do, and to put on a little pressure with Dragoons. So, but Jaehoon looks like he's going for some sort of Reaver opening. But yeah, look, a lot of turrets going down. He has those 2 factories up. Looks like he's also opting for some sort of Vulture Harass. He's getting those upgrades. And one thing I love about Vulture Harass on this map is you have a very easy to take third base. So you can just mine up your front, expand right there underneath the bunker, and then add on a whole bunch more stuff. And you pretty much are trying to shut down your Protoss's 4th base. Not his 3rd. He'll get his natural, his 2nd, and his 2nd natural, his 3rd base up very quickly, but it's that 4th one. If we look down here at the mini-map on the right, it's that base he wants to shut down, or this one up at the top right here. And I think that's pretty typical on any map, really, is to open, after you expand, to get 2 factories, both making vultures, and to get the upgrades for the vultures, because that's going to allow you to just manage your Protoss's expanding. If it were something like Destination, you'd be trying to manage your Protoss' third base. You'd be trying to shut down his third base antics. So again, more amazing placement. Notice how that bunker is tight with the command center. That takes a hell of a lot of planning to get that one set up that well. And we have a good old scouting observer here. Pretty much the same build that Flash was doing in the earlier game that we saw. But in that previous game, with all that insane aggression, Flash delayed his build, or should I say he got delayed by those... No, actually, I think that's an important enough difference to come back here. So, God, my camera is just the least stable thing in the world. But once again, I bought an HD camera, and that should be here hopefully Thursday or Friday. So, anyways, going back to game 1, just think about it for a minute. In that game, someone might say that those Dark Templars delayed Flash's build, got in the way of things. But it's significant, the idea of, I am going to delay my own build in relation to your build. In other words, if your Protoss player is doing all this crazy aggression with Dark Templars early on, his economy has to be bad. So my build that gets me all these bases doesn't have to get up so quickly. Ordinarily, I would need all those bases up really quickly to account for the fact that Protoss is getting a whole bunch of bases up really quickly. But if your Protoss is getting them up slowly, I too am allowed to get away with them a little bit more slowly. So here, in this game, we see that Terran has had nothing get in the way of his build, and it's happening a lot more quickly. And it's less that Flash is getting to play better this game, and more that that's just how things stay even. Protoss is not focusing on being aggressive. This game is focusing on expanding an economy. So that, therefore, Flash needs to speed up the rate of his build and get his expansions out a little bit more quickly. So that is one thing to really take away from these two builds, is in both cases, Flash is getting pretty much the exact same thing. He's still getting a lot of vultures to do stuff with early. He's still doing this early bunker to defend his expansions. All that is still there in both cases. It's just he was able to get it up faster in this build, or excuse me, in this game where there's not so much aggression, and he was getting them up a little bit more slowly in the first game where there was a lot of aggression, but still the same thing. And that's why it's so important to make sure you've identified the core ideas in your build, so if you get delayed or if you have to speed those up, you still know what all the elements are. And look, walling off his own front, getting that armory, look at this huge late game focus, almost the exact same thing as in the earlier game. And Jaehoon is doing something completely different. He's getting up these Stargates and these 4 gateways. And this pretty much is standard. 4 gateways and 2 Stargates for the carriers. And often you'll see a shuttle with a Reaver. That, again, is why I say that the 2-base Goon Reaver is a good setup for carriers. This is just like the most standard thing in the world. It looks like Jaehoon's going for a little bit more expansion-oriented stuff. And also, let's just, just briefly stop praising Flash for being totally kick-ass. And note that Jaehoon's build is pretty damn good, too. The reason we like getting carriers around this time is that our Terran opponent... look, I mean, Flash got his armory after 2 factories. That is a fast armory. And even then, there's really no way to beat these carriers to air. So, I mean, it's very safe as long as you see a small factory count. If you see a high factory count as Protoss, you can't get away with just having 2 gateways and then getting your 2 Stargates. You have to get like 4 or 5 gateways before you end up getting those Stargates. And look, Jaehoon looks like he's adding up to about 6 gateways right now. So, more Vulture Harass. Again, what did we say earlier? These Vultures are trying to manage this Protoss' 4th base. It's trying to keep tabs on that 4th base, try to shut it down, delay it as much as possible. And that's pretty much what it's doing. At the very least, it's distracting Protoss. And look at Flash exploding forward with all his factories. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have been surprised if Flash had done some sort of 2 armory build to get a fast +2/+1 push. But lately, he's just been pushing right after +1 upgrade. Doing some really suave, aggressive builds. So everything seems to be going quite normally for both players. Protoss would have liked to get his 4th up a little bit earlier, but it's getting delayed quite a bit. Looks like Flash has not yet scouted those carriers. But if you look at the mini-map, because now that we have this first-person thing, Flash is also swinging around the bottom. That bottom path is the one where I was like, oh yeah, he's going to be able to get that expansion up really easily. And look at Flash helping me look smart. God bless you, Flash. You're so cool. He's bringing some guys up there. Now, this, at this point, is more as a position to push from, and less as a chance to expand. And here is the big reveal. I actually think that was too early by Jaehoon. I actually think he could have waited until 4 carriers were up, and just let him get a little bit closer. This was way over-eager by Jaehoon. I actually think it's to the point of calling it a significant blunder. Because now Flash has all this time to prepare. What did he lose? Like a tank? I mean, patience is probably one of the most important things in StarCraft. Just holding and holding and holding and holding, and at the very last second, you crunch his army to attack. I mean, this is one of the big things that Savior was well known for as a Zerg player, is his ability to just wait and wait and wait so long, and then just pounce on his opponent. So people in the KTF bench seem to be getting quite excited. A bunch of turrets being spammed to stay alive, but you know, there's just not that many carriers, and even then the carriers don't have 8 interceptors, so it's real tough for all those carriers to really be any sort of threat whatsoever. Oh god, I think that was such a big blunder to have revealed himself that early. Jaehoon still has a pretty damn good build. I mean, he's getting his 4th base up way earlier than most Terraning opponents. But, I mean, still, I can't believe you revealed those. And this is the good way to manage this army, where you sort of stop, shoot at these vultures a little bit. This delays the push. So that way you actually have the chance to attack the army later on, once it's been whittled down a little bit. And is an unbelievably important lesson for a lot of Protoss players who enjoy the art of going carriers. I would definitely say that any carrier build you do, the biggest concern is, how the hell do I get him? How do I get there? How do I get there without dying to some sort of early attack? And in this case, it was the fact that he only saw 2 factories, and that his opponent was getting that 3rd base up so quickly. And he was just like, yeah, I'll be fine. Okay, so that's bad. Don't let that happen. I think that goes without saying. And we're going to let this game go forward. I'm kind of hoping that Flash ends up winning a little bit soon, so that way we have more time for Q&A, since we didn't get to do that yesterday. Thanks to Livestream crapping out on me. Ugh, God, it gives me the nerd rage. But still, something I would also note by Flash is that Flash is having a lot of patience once he gets to the money spot, right? And I always refer to something like this with aggression. A lot of times, if you're doing some huge push, you sprint to one spot, and that takes, like, 20 seconds to do that. And then it takes, like, 5 minutes to get from this spot to the front of his base. So in this particular game, this money spot is right here at the bottom, where he's rushing up to there. And once he hits that point, he plays very, very slowly. So slowly. It almost seems counterintuitively slowly that he's going to be pushing. But that is really important, that for anyone who's favoring 5 factory timing pushes in Terran vs. Protoss, that you push up to some pivotal spot and then inch your way forward. There was a great game between Firebat Hero and Best, Firebat Hero and Bisu, one of those 2 players, that we actually did in the Day 9 Daily, where it's just inching forward. And we're seeing why this is the money spot. Should the Protoss player freak out and attack, you have the most amazing concave. And also, this attack helps to highlight why it does end up being this slow inching forward. If Terran had been even, a few hexes farther north, it would have made this attack way better for Protoss. Protoss would have demolished everything that Terran had. But instead, we have a very calm Flash, just continuing to demonstrate why he is the beast that has 90% win rate. And look at Flash taking another expansion, like, whatever. I'll just get some more bases. Treating it like a Hunter's game, where he's already maxed. Anyways, some nice micro. I actually think this is a little bit far forward by Flash. This is getting a little bit aggressive. I would have preferred this tank, that tank that was up there, a little bit farther back and hugging that right wall. Just compacting things a little bit. That front tank was just a little bit too vulnerable where it was, and as we saw, it got picked off without that much difficulty. And then look at that beautiful scan in the center, sniping all that stuff off. Getting a little bit small, getting a little bit thin on the push front. But what's pretty amazing about this job by Flash is, okay, so look right now, everyone's like, oh, it looks like Jaehoon barely managed to stay alive. But look at this, he had the expansion up. That is why the classic move in StarCraft is take an expansion when you attack. Because the attack can slowly peter off into nothing, and you can still have a significant advantage. Because what the hell is Jaehoon going to do now, right? I mean, what is he going to try to do, a big counterattack? I mean, these expansions are way far on the other side of the map. These carriers are, their interceptor count's low. The regular carrier count itself is low. So Flash is just going, yeah. Let's just extend this game a little bit longer, where I have closer to 100% chance to win. Because why take an 80% chance to win now if you could go for a 100% chance of winning by making this game go out even longer? Always choose that second one. And in fact, by following that rule, actually I looked at my Brood War chart to a lot of my old games, and my average game length, the average game length was around 16, 17 minutes. Very long games compared to the average of about 11 of most players. I just constantly letting the player just run out of money. And I have a lot of games where the last 15 minutes just look stupid, where I'll have like the entire map, but I'll still be refusing to attack. Because, you know what? Why risk it? I like my pretty high win percentage. And especially in a tournament situation like this, where you're not really going for a win percentage, you're going for a win, even more critical. And now he's expanding up here to the north. I actually think this is a super smart move. Anytime you're against a carrier-ing opponent, feel free to expand like crazy to opposite corners of the map and all this clever junk, because the carriers are so slow that it's very hard to knock out one of those expansions easily. So think if these carriers did wander all the way up here to this north expansion, Terran just pushes straight into the Protoss base and the carriers are cut off. Or even if a bunch of ground units go in there. You know, there's enough mines, you can swerve enough vultures up there. Or hell, you can even just go ahead and attack with all your units. I mean, probably the worst thing ever is if you send a bunch of ground units up there, if you try to swoop up here with ground units, Terran comes up here, mines up this area, and then pushes up here. That's the worst. That actually should be a nice standard in everyone's repertoire as Terran, is drawing Protoss forces in one direction and planting mines in between that Protoss's base and your push. Just very, very normal thing to do, but you know, it's very easy for players not to think about. A lot of times, Terran players will just throw down mines for the sake of throwing down mines. You know, they'll do stuff like that, or they'll be like, oh, my mines killed off units, I did the right thing. But it's definitely great to force your opponent to walk through your mines, as opposed to just hoping he will. Because as much as I like to have a game that relies on hope, it's better just to be able to, you know, smash people. So here are the vultures coming up, probably going to kill off the zealot, throw down some mines. And this is classic Flash. I have more Goliaths than you have interceptors, so I'm going to kill your interceptors off one at a time and drain you of any money. So here come the carriers, here comes more vultures to try to plant those mines to force Terran to walk through them. This is a little bit too fancy for me. I dislike this play by Protoss. This is a nice poke to try to get in there and to freak him out a little bit, but I think that the cost was too great. He brought all those carriers in the front to, ooh, I'm going to distract the Goliaths. And really what happened is he lost about, you know, $800 worth of interceptors, and then had to back his Dragoons off anyways, so I'm not the biggest fan of that. So much expanding going on by Flash, really just dominating this map. I would honestly say that Flash's game plan, the moment that he got that fourth base up and just pulled back with all of his units, his timing window is right when he gets 2-2, or even when he gets 3-3. And I think that seems reasonable, not just from a timing point of view, like, oh, it's about the right time when Protoss is most vulnerable, but also because it's an easy trigger for the Terran player. Probably, I think, the most difficult skill in Terran vs. Protoss is when the Protoss player has carriers and Terran's back like this, when and how does Terran attack? That has always been one of the most difficult aspects of any Terran player's play. And I think that just aligning it with your 2-2 or your 3-3 upgrades is great, because it means that your Goliaths have a much easier time taking down those interceptors, and tanks have a much easier time taking out anything that moves. So definitely creating those little timings for yourself. You know, a lot of players kind of screw that up. They'll just be like, and I attack, you know, and sometimes they'll do it when their upgrade's like half done. There's nothing wrong with just waiting. Yeah, look, there's the 2-1. 2-2 should almost be up. And I mean that 2-2 is a very important upgrade. Or excuse me, I should just say the 2 attack upgrade for Goliath is a super critical upgrade. You just burn through those interceptors so fast. It's you know, if this were a StarCraft 2 forum, and this were StarCraft 2, people would probably argue that it is violently imbalanced, and probably blame the issue of Goliaths killing interceptors on the Roach. But, you know, now that we know that this game's been out for 12 years and it's balanced, we just call it really good. And again, Protoss trying to do some stuff, but look at the timing of this attack by Flash. This is when he just gets the money army, right? He has so much units, they're all 2-2. At least they should be 2-2. It looks like Protoss is 1-0-1, has 1 attack, 0 armor, 1 shield. And by the way, for any of you who don't know this convention, even though it goes armor, shield, attack, everyone always calls it by attack, armor, shield. I don't know why. So if you get, you know, a +1 attack upgrade, you say your units are 1-0. Oh my god, that's Quesadilla on the TeamLiquid.net forums. I didn't know that guy was there. Dude, oh my god, that's so sick. I know that guy in real life. I have his phone number on my Skype. I should call him right now. Check it out, dude, that's Andrew. Look at him, he's so happy to be there. Oh man, and Koreans just love white people. So look at that. Yeah, Andrew Smith. Actually, I probably shouldn't, I shouldn't say his name on on my stream. But you know, I figure that's a generic enough name that you guys will probably struggle to find it anyways. I can't believe I said his name on the stream. Oh, my sincerest apologies. Anyways, returning to the game. Whoops. Yeah, he's getting the 2-2 attack upgrade, doing quite a lot of damage. And from here, you know, it's pretty much all she wrote. The 2-2 attack upgrade makes your Goliaths burn through carrier interceptors. Very important thing to note. If you can pick off carriers like that, obviously do so. No reason to be like, oh, let him have that carrier. I'm going to kill interceptors later. Just kill the carrier, man. And, you know, we have some other stuff going on by Jaehoon right now, but after he lost all those interceptors, and I'd probably say, actually, I'll just do the courtesy of letting the game play out in fast forward, because, you know, players are going to try extra hard to hang in there and be troopers, because, you know, it's the finals. But, you know, Flash obviously just slowly pulling his boa constrictor grip down on his opponent and eventually winning. So I'm going to unmute the chat, at which point a lot of people are going to make fun of me. But anyways, I think the big key was that Flash had a very strong build, and when he did that huge attack, the goal was to take a 4th base. That's genius. I love that. So, you know, I only have time for just a handful of questions because it's actually 8:03 p.m. where I am, and I have a meeting -3 minutes ago, but what are meetings to StarCraft? So let's go ahead and mute the chat. Muting the chat. So let's check this out. What are some good questions? Let's take this first one right here from Watamore, who says, Day 9, what's your opinion on the current state of the Siege tank? It's such an iconic unit from StarCraft 1. That's been noticeably diminished in the use of StarCraft 2. How would you change it to see it become a Terran staple again? Or should it stay as it is and be a more situational unit? So, I'm obviously going to take this question because we saw tanks put the herd on, and we watched 2 Terran vs. Protosses, and again, tanks were the backbone unit of pretty much most Terran armies, really. Even in Terran vs. Zerg, where occasionally you'll just have medic, marine, and vessels, the tanks are really the muscle that you're going for in those early games. So I don't have that big of an issue with the way tanks work in StarCraft 2, partly because we have the Thor, and why would you not make a Thor, honestly? But I think a better answer is that it's important to be careful comparing StarCraft 1 to StarCraft 2, because let's say, for instance, that this game wasn't called StarCraft 2, that it was, you know, Warcraft 4. They were trying to make it like StarCraft, and all these units had different names. I don't think anyone would have that big of an issue with the tank. They would just be like, I don't use this unit that much. I personally don't really use it in any matchup with Terran versus Terran. Trying to make sure that statement's true. That sounds about right. That's... God, what I said was so true. What was I talking about? Completely lost my train of thought. But the fact that it's not a staple unit doesn't necessarily make it bad. I mean, for instance, the Scout in StarCraft 1. It is a base unit that you get with a Stargate. You can make Scouts and Corsairs. Similarly to how, you get the Tech Lab add-on. You can make siege tanks and Thors. But still people don't say, how do I make the Scout a staple unit of my army? They acknowledge that, I will take that call. That's the person calling being like, why aren't you at the meeting? Oh, God, I just need to drop out of grad school. But anyways, yeah, so I think the back to what I was saying before I lost my train of thought. People don't really freak out about the Scout. They don't try to make it a staple element of their army, but it's very clearly useful against like Devourers, against Terrans who get a lot of battle cruisers, which though doesn't happen that often against Protoss. When it does happen, the Scout is like the unit that's just the easy way out of that. So it doesn't really bother me so much now. Right now I've been experimenting a lot with siege tanks against Zerg to manage with Banelings, where I siege up, advance forward, see the Banelings run back, and because I don't succumb to one control group syndrome, I just target the Banelings, bam, take them out with the tanks, because I have them all hotkey to one control group, and I like that quite a bit. I'm interested to see if there will be any sort of buff to the siege tank in some of these some of these newer patches coming out. So let's take this question by BDF92. Oh, God, this is a good question. As a late-game Protoss, how many carriers should you have compared to the rest of the army? Should you go all carriers, or carriers to supplement your army? Arbiters, Dragoons, Carriers, Zealots? Question mark? Thanks. Oh, cool. He thanked me. I haven't even answered it yet. What I would say is a general good number to have is about 2 Stargates making carriers, occasionally 3 making carriers, and plenty of gateways getting more ground units. Because really, it's less that carriers are really, really good as units, and more that carriers botch Terran's unit composition. Because even if I get 4 or 5 carriers, you still need a ton of Goliaths, right? You need a bazillion Goliaths. If I make a shuttle, you just need a Goliath. And once you've made a Goliath, maybe 2 Goliaths, you're like, cool, I'm done making Goliaths. But when you see any carriers as Terran, you just go, oh, Jesus. And you have to make a ton of Goliaths because you don't know how many more carriers are coming. And by continuing to make Dragoons and Zealots, you'll be in beautiful shape. I think the better question is, how do you improve that composition even more? I would definitely say get the Templar Archives a little earlier, especially if you are taking a 4th base as fast as Jehoon did in this game. The Templar are just instrumental against those large Goliath numbers. But still, to answer the question, about 2-3 Stargates, and you want somewhere between 6 and 10 gateways, depending on your expo count. Like 2 Stargates, 6 gateways when you have 2 bases, or excuse me, 3 bases total. Seems like a good mix. So I actually only have time for one more question. Oh, this is so funny. It's Tarantula, but he capitalized the T, so it says Tarantula. Haha. So Tarantula says, in the post-game interview, the NBC coach said that he was surprised that Han failed to kill Flash. Do you think this was an allusion to the ear hack from the Flash vs. Light game? Or do you think Flash planned on building his eBay before factory? Or was this just good gut instinct? I think the reason that I'm honestly I'm honestly surprised that Flash won that game, because Han did such an incredible job with his opening and transitioning into a normal mid game and screwing up Flash, because Flash is at a serious detriment. But what was so amazing about Flash is that he killed off those units in the middle. He killed off those Dragoons really easily, and then immediately knew he could attack right then and there. And I honestly, truly think that Flash is the only player on the planet who would have been able to do that. And I think that the eBay before the factory was the fact that Flash was just raping it up in the late game stages and just said, you know what, the only way I'm losing is by these early Dark Templar harassment. So with that, I am 10 minutes late. I have to go, and it's been a pleasure talking to all of you. Please tune into Day 9 Daily number 100. I'm doing all sorts of amazing, just stories of my life as a StarCraft player. Yeah, just love talking about StarCraft, so I'll continue to do so. What hair products do I use? I don't know. It's this Australian shampoo with a kangaroo on it in a purple bottle. Bam! All right, sweet. Take it easy, everyone, and see ya.